Well, firstly, thank you very much for inviting me here. I also want to thank Howard for giving such a good introduction. And actually, Howard and I are both representatives of the solar industry, and in many ways quite aligned. So I'm not going to reiterate the points that he just made. I'm just going to say a few words, and then we can take questions. But I think, yeah, I'd like to perhaps just sort of add some color to what he said by giving a bit of an overview of, my experience in the solar industry so far, and sort of a bit about what we do in the UK solar industry, and some of the, identify some of the advantages that, doing solar in the UK has. So, I mean, my background, actually, I started off my career in science. I did a PhD in a novel photovoltaic technology, not far from here at Imperial College. And I just want to say that, one of the reasons why the solar industry, in particular photovoltaics, is so exciting, and why we see such a positive future for the industry. I mean, solar technology, photovoltaics, it's been around since the 1960s. We've been powering our satellites in space since we first launched them using photovoltaics. The reason why now is such an exciting time for the solar industry is because of cost reduction, and that cost reduction has been driven by technologies and volumes. So there is a very exciting future in technology for photovoltaics. So as an example, the technology I was working on during my PhD is called organic photovoltaics. And organic photovoltaics uses a special type of material to make solar panels. One of the main reasons why solar panels are so expensive today is because they are still the largest cost of a solar energy system. The costs are coming down extremely rapidly, but you have to use a lot of silicon. And silicon is an extremely abundant material. It's the most abundant material, the second most abundant element in the Earth's crust. You find it in sand, it's silicon dioxide. But it does require a lot of energy, and it's a very expensive process to get that silicon out of rock, out of sand, essentially, purify it, and then to melt it down and grow extremely pure crystals of silicon, which are then sliced into wafers and then put into solar panels. That process is very energy intensive, and and it does cost a lot. Because of the rapid increases in production volume, we've managed to improve that process now, to reduce the amount of energy that it costs. It typically takes 2 years, even in the UK, to pay back the energy that it took to make the solar panels. And a solar panel is expected to last about 40 years. So the energy payback time of a solar panel has greatly reduced. And also, the costs are falling and continue to fall dramatically. But there's even beyond that, there are some really exciting technologies that don't even require silicon anymore. There's and organic photovoltaics, what I was working on in my PhD, is actually one of those technologies that uses, instead of silicon, a type of plastic. So the idea is that because this plastic is soluble and it can become an ink, you can actually print solar panels on rolls in a similar way to a printing press. And that's just one example of one technology. There are an array of thousands of new technologies in and around solar energy that are all bringing down to the cost of solar. So that we're not going to see a sudden jump when a new technology comes online, because there are far too many technological advances being made. It's going to be a cost curve that's very similar to what we see in the computing industry. So you see an exponential reduction in the cost of solar panels as time goes by and as volumes increase. So that's why we're all very confident that we won't need subsidies in the future. There's a huge amount of development happening in the industry. And then that takes me to my time in Germany, where I was working for General Electric, one of the largest companies in the world. Actually, the quote that Howard showed from Thomas Edison. I mean, Thomas Edison was actually one of the company's slides, is that Thomas Edison, one of the founders of General Electric, made that statement, and then General Electric went on and made gas turbines for the next 200 years. So they're now, but they are starting to see the potential of solar energy, and it's now starting to get the interest of large organizations. However, what's interesting is that solar is not suited to large companies. Distributed generation does not match the typical business model of large companies. Large companies in the utility space, either the people making the energy infrastructure like General Electric, or utilities that own and manage that infrastructure, they are in the business of generating energy and selling it to consumers. So generating centrally and selling to the many millions. The problem that solar causes that type of business model is you then have consumers producing their own energy and selling it back to the utilities. It's a huge upheaval. And when you have a technology like solar where you can produce, even in the UK, you can produce half of the electricity of a single home with one PV installation, sometimes even more, then suddenly the electricity needs of that home are dramatically reduced, and it's very hard for the utilities to control that. And if you look at what's happened in Germany, so it was a fantastic experience being in Germany. If you've ever been in the last couple of years to Germany, particularly the south, you'll know what I'm talking about. It is staggering, the amount of PV. You drive through villages and you can't find a roof that doesn't have solar panels in many villages. You really have to see it to believe it. It is, it instantly tells you what the future looks like. And if you look at what's happened there with the decisions that the German government have been able to make, for instance, in decommissioning their nuclear power stations by 2022, it does start to pose a real threat. So none of us here are conspiracy theorists, but it just makes if you are a utility, then you've got to look at things like microgeneration and see them as a potential threat, unless you radically alter the way you do business. So I think that's the sort of key learnings that we find from Germany, and I think the key ask of our campaign, the overall ask, is that the UK take a second look at solar, realize the potential that's there, and start to be much more transparent about how they treat other energy technologies, and relate that to how they look at solar. They've said that they don't want solar to be an investment. Well, who invests in offshore wind turbines? Who invests in nuclear power stations or coal power stations? We need investment. We have to attract it. And the government strategy at the moment is radically different towards solar compared to other technologies. So that's all we're asking, really. And anyway, I'm very happy to answer some questions.